Here's the president talking about this farmer bailout that's upcoming.
Delighted to announce this afternoon that the United States will be taking a small portion of the hundreds of billions of dollars we receive in tariffs. We are making a lot of money from countries that took advantage of us for years. They took advantage of us like nobody's ever seen. Our deficits are way down because of tariffs. I guess because of the election, because without the election you wouldn't have tariffs. You'd be sitting here losing your shirt. But we're taking in billions. We're really taking in trillions of dollars, if you think about it, Scott, because the real numbers, when you think of all the money being poured into the country for new auto plants and all of the other things, AI. So what we're doing is we're taking a relatively small portion of that, and we're going to be giving and providing it to the farmers in economic assistance. And we love our farmers, and as you know, the farmers like me, because based on voting trends, you could call it voting trends or anything else, but they're great people. They're the backbone of our country. So we're going to use that money to provide $12 billion in economic assistance to American farmers. $12 billion is a lot of money, Meryl. What do you think? Peanuts for you, though, right? Peanuts. She's a farmer of rice. This relief will provide much-needed certainty to farmers as they get this year's harvest to market and look ahead to next year's crops, and it'll help them continue their efforts to lower food prices for American families.
If you have to keep selling your plan of bailing out farmers during the first year of your term, when you said everything was going to be wonderful and everything's on day one is going to start changing, I feel like it's pretty obvious that you got a bad situation happening, that there's a lot of spin going on. What makes it even worse is when people like Laura Ingraham, who works for the state media TV at Fox News for Donald Trump, posted that particular announcement and had her own thoughts. She said, Trump takes tariff money from abroad and puts $12 billion of it into American agriculture. That's how you put farmers first. Oh, it's weird. Look underneath that video that she posted. Some readers over on X, full of all those crazy folks, that was morphed into this whole entity that's supposed to follow and suck Donald Trump's ass. See, they added some context and it said U.S. tariffs are primarily paid by U.S. importers, U.S. businesses, and U.S. consumers. That's weird because that's like standard knowledge. It was standard knowledge when Donald Trump was campaigning on putting tariffs on everything. And then after he put tariffs on everything, he screwed so many people over and keeps acting like it's a great thing. So as he's going to give this $12 billion to farmers, I wonder what farmers think about it. I wonder if they're celebrating this.
$12 billion. How's that sound to you?
Well, I appreciate the help, but it's a far cry from what we need. Just the loss in corn this year with a record crop was over $16 billion. The loss in soybeans at production is around $11 billion. That doesn't count cotton and rice, which are even bigger losses than that.
So this $12 billion is not going to make up for this 1 year? I mean, say China goes back to buying soybeans and other crops as they were buying before this trade war. Is $12 billion not enough to bridge that gap?
Probably not.
Just like with the promises of $2,000, $1,000, more windfalls and cutting some checks with his name on it so that folks in this country who are suffering can think that $1,000 to $2,000 is a lot of money. Somehow he thinks, as he mentioned a couple of times, $12 billion. But he didn't want to point out how much money that these folks have actually lost and will continue to lose, because it's more than just a dollar amount. This is what this administration keeps thinking people don't understand, even though they have their own businesses, their own lives, their own bank accounts, and their own knowledge and understanding how finances work. Somehow he thinks tossing $12 billion and saying billion a few times is going to make people forget that they've lost so much more. And there's other aspects of his agenda that screwed people over in this economic turmoil that we've got. It would cause you to ask a very automatic question to that woman, the agricultural secretary, Brooke Rollins, sitting next to Donald Trump. Isn't this an announcement of how bad your policies are?
And Secretary Rollins, is this bailout today an acknowledgement that the administration's trade policies are hurting U.S. farmers? And what would you say to U.S. farmers who are worried that China is not going to hold up its end of the agreements that the president was touting?
Yeah, so two quick things to answer your question. When we were out here earlier this spring, I think I came out and gaggled with a lot of you after the president announced Liberation Day. And starting then, almost immediately, I said this president is resolutely focused. If there is any evidence that trade is compromising these farmers' ability to sell their product, that we will ensure, just as he did in term one, negotiating China one, that we'll make sure that we are mitigating for that. The really interesting thing is, though, now that we're 8, 9, 10 months into this, there is almost zero evidence, if any evidence, that what they are doing and the challenges that our farm economy is facing in row crops has anything to do with these trade renegotiations. Instead, the input costs being so high based on the last administration and not one new trade deal in 4 years, those are really the two basically driving factors in why the farm economy is today what it is. So you'll see we pivoted from, we're going to do an aid package, assuming the trade has been extremely or potentially harmful, and instead now we're just going to support our row croppers based on those input prices, based on no new deals, as we continue to monitor trade. On the China soybeans, Secretary Bessent himself, a soybean farmer, I think at least till a couple of days ago, I think he just divested, has said, and the president has said and made very clear in that room, that China will meet their commitment. And so I have full faith in what they've said, and I'm very excited. I'm encouraged by that.
But as you know, they failed before to live up to those agreements. So
that's true, but it's a new day. I do not have concerns. I do believe that we will get there. 12 million, then 25 million, and 25 million, and 25 million metric tons. But it does go to the larger goal of opening up markets around the world so that we are not so reliant on China.
They're not opening up markets across the world. They are more reliant on China. She just said he forced China to buy more soybeans. Why would we force China to buy more soybeans if we're no longer reliant on China, as they call it? Trade, buying and selling, things like that. That's reliance. Even so, she points out how they're getting these more bushels, tons more that we're getting sent off. And she wants you to forget that I just talked about it like a week and a half ago. She acknowledged that they're nowhere near the levels that they said they're going to get.
China is back on to buy soybeans, 12 million metric tons this year, 25 million metric tons over the next few years.
You said in the White House, it said that China was going to buy 12 million metric tons of soybeans from the United States by January. We're now just about a month and a half away from that. They have, according to the USDA report, only made 2 big purchases, and they total, in total, 332,000 metric tons.
We've got a significant way to go. I know they are inking the deal this week or next week. Again, every sign is their commitment remains true, that they will indeed buy or purchase 12 million metric tons or put the order in. It doesn't mean we'll move 12 million metric tons by the end of December.
Those markets, then, those trade deals that they keep saying that they've got happening don't exist. We've transitioned with this fascist administration into this whole weird mindset of how the government is going to pay farmers to exist, barely. This from A More Perfect Union. There's a few parts that they put together about where this money will go eventually. Immediately.
Over the last 8 years, the federal government has sent farmers over $130 billion in emergency aid. But when you follow where that money actually goes, it reveals who's really profiting from this system and why more bailouts won't fix it.
So when I get an aid package, that money will never come to me. It comes straight through my hands into whoever I owe the money to.
When federal money is sent to farmers who have debts, like most small farmers, they quickly pass it on to the companies they borrowed from to buy the products they need to farm, like seed, fertilizer, and machinery. And the combined costs of those inputs have risen far faster than what farmers can sell their crops for on the market. Farmers pay 3 times higher on inputs than they did in the 1990s.
What has gotten us to this point is the mergers and consolidations of ag input suppliers. When I started farming, we had 5 or 6 Arkansas-based seed companies. Monsanto, there's none. They're all owned by Bayer or Pioneer.
They don't expect anyone to realize how businesses work. They don't want people to realize that you have costs to run a business. Specifically with these farmers, they're talking about the costs that they have to run them and who controls those costs, who they then owe money to just to get to their normal bottom line or whatever profit it is that they're trying to make. We're talking about smaller farmers. There's a lot more. Because just like these monopolies over all these companies that they owe all this money to, they're eventually going to run them out completely. Here's more from this.
In the last 40 years, thousands of seed companies have merged into 3. 46 fertilizer firms have merged into 4. And just 2 farm machinery companies dominate the markets for tractors and combines.
Just for easy numbers, say I'm going to make $500 an acre gross on an acre of whatever. Well, those companies know that. And they will price their stuff up to like $490. The lack of competition is the reason they can keep those prices inflated, and there's nothing we can do about it. They're going to push us up to the brink, and then when they tip us over the edge, they're going to go to the taxpayer for the balance.
If the Trump administration responds to this crisis with another toothless antitrust investigation, another farm bailout, and another Band-Aid deal with China, nothing will fundamentally change for American farmers.
Well, I'm not even sure if they're going to go that route. I feel like they're skipping all these other steps of acting like they're doing something else as far as any kind of antitrust. It's just, it's Biden's fault, which was one of the main points of Brooke Rollins' answer there. It was the previous administration. We inherited a horrible situation. Why would anyone follow behind someone whose main point and purpose and anything that they said when they said they're the best thing ever that's going to ever hit the presidency, then continue to talk about the previous old man president that I thought couldn't do anything? Last part about this piece from the More Perfect Union, breaking down just how little this bailout that he's trying to sell will do.
Is this really a resilient farm system, or should we be thinking differently? We used to have more of a supply management system, but we've gotten rid of that.
Supply management is the name for policies that establish price floors for important crops so that farmers don't have to fear operating at a loss year after year. One study found that a supply management system could have saved taxpayers nearly $100 billion in farm aid payments over 2 decades. Instead, that money largely flowed through farmers to some of the world's largest corporations.
Give us a price floor, which makes us performance-based. So if you guarantee me $12.50 a bushel for my beans, it costs $11.50 to raise them. You've guaranteed me $1 a profit on the bushels, right? Then it's on me to go do the work. I go make the bushels so that I increase my profit. Would that not kind of end the bailout program if you had a floor?
Remember all the discussions people always have about regulations, and we hear conservatives, Republicans, even before the Trump days came in, about deregulation in every aspect. When you deregulate any rules or standards on huge corporations that pay politicians to say things like deregulate, then the deregulation results in them going wild. It results in them having this predatory nature in every aspect, because again, it's a capitalistic country. And the basis for this capitalist country is you win and someone else has to lose. So as I have more money, I can pay politicians to give me the win and continue to screw your ass over. And then when people get upset about it, which they have been, and seeing our situation and our economy tanking right now, they say, well, let's give them this feel-good, empty promise that says you're getting $12 billion when in fact, it's all going straight back to those same people who are hell-bent on this deregulation. And politicians looking the other way. So happy bailout. That's what the bailout is doing. Everything, 100% of the things that this president does, everything that his administration does is to help rich people. Why do you think, one more glance, on Inauguration Day, all those billionaires were showing up offering piddly little $1 million to this cheap hoe? He's going to take their money and give them everything they want, and then he'll make money on the side for all of his other corrupt, nasty deals as well.